Hello and welcome to another video in the PHP 101 series. In this video we're going to talk about some very useful string functions, functions that can manipulate strings or do things with strings that I use all the time that I thought would be useful for you to learn that you might find yourself using quite often. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is go ahead and go to your scripts directory and let's create a new file. And we're going to call this string functions.php, and we'll open some PHP tags, skip down a few lines and close them. Now the first thing that I want to show you is let's create a string, and we're going to say this string is the quick brown fox jumps over the moon. Okay, so this is a string, so a couple really useful things you might want to do with a string is you'll find yourself doing string to lower quite often. So you can take a string and make everything in the string lowercase. So you can do lower is equal to string to lower, and then pass in the string variable. And then what we'll do is let's just echo lower. Okay. So I'll go back and navigate to the scripts directory so that we can get to our page, and it's just string functions.php, and we see that this is all lowercase. And that's what the string to lower function does that PHP gives us. Another one that you might want to do is uppercase. So you can say upper is equal to string to upper, and then pass in your string. And then we'll echo that. Also, just want to go ahead and echo a break tag on both of these. Alright, so in the next one, you can see that everything in here is uppercase. The other thing that you can do is you can uppercase each word. So let's just say UC words is equal to UC words, and then we pass in string, and then let's go ahead and echo UC words, and we'll concatenate on a break. So all the functions I'm showing you right now have to do with the case of a function. And so now you can see it doesn't change any of the original things that are uppercase, like this one. So for example, if you have an uppercase here, it just makes sure the beginning of each word is uppercase. So if you wanted to fix something like this, what we could have done is, instead of passing in the string, we could pass in lower into the UC words. So let's pass in lower there, and now just the beginning of each word. Now, why is this useful? Well, first of all, it could be for presentational use, but also one thing that I find myself doing a lot is if I don't know, especially if it's coming from user input, I don't know how they're going to case something, I will, when I'm doing comparisons, I'll do a string to lower on any input that they're getting. For example, if I had an input and let's just say, this is maybe not a useful example, but let's just say I had a question and it said, do you like ponies? Okay, or something like that. And they could type yes or no. Well, I don't know if they're going to type yes in all caps. I don't know if they're going to type it in, they could type it in all lowers. They could just have just the S capitalized for some reason. And if I'm doing a check, like in an if statement, I need to know if they typed yes. So what you can do is you could do it like this. You could say if string to lower, and then take their input here, and we can say if that is equal to yes, then you could do stuff in here. So then process for yes, because like you just don't know how people are going to type. They might have their caps lock stuck on, and if I checked for yes like this, since strings are case sensitive, this would not return a proper Boolean for me. Okay, so that could be a reason why you would use some of these functions. I would say out of all of these, I probably use string to lower the most, but I do come across use cases quite often for string to upper and UC words as well. Okay, so now that's a few of the functions that have to do with the case of a string. Let me tell you a few more functions that I find that I use all of the time, and these are trimming functions. So let's just see. Let's say we had a string that came from an input, and we'll just call it password, because this might happen quite often. And in a password, I had a field on my form called password, and someone accidentally had a space because maybe they're copying and pasting their password from somewhere, and they had a space at the beginning because they copied too much of it, or they had a space at the end. So say their password was password, okay, and they had a space at the beginning and end, and I was doing a check to see if their password was correct. Well, if I did this, if I say if password is equal to password, then log them in, this is not going to pass, okay? So in this case, password is not equal to password because there's a white space character before and after the password. So a better way to do this, so I'm just going to say this will not pass. And you find this happening all the time when people copy and paste, especially passwords or something. They'll have extra space on the beginning and then. But also, so the way to fix this, there's a function called trim. So what I could do is I could say if, and then I could say trim, and I can trim the password like this, and then check if that's equal to password, and then log them in inside of the if statement. Well, this will pass because even though they typed in this with, or copied and pasted this in with extra space, the trim function will remove any white space on the beginning or the end of the string. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I do find myself using that quite often. The other thing is some variation on trim. You can do right trim and left trim, and those simply are just L trim. This right here would just trim, this trims space off the beginning or the left side. Alright, and then the counterpart to that is right trim, and this trims space off the end of the string, and that is up the end of the string. Okay, so what this does, that's our trim. Okay, so we'll pass password into that. Okay, but if you're going to just trim off both, you might as well use trim. A better use case, or not a better, but another use case for the L trim and R trim is, let's say I had a string like a comma separated value. Okay, so let's just say I had a CSV value and I had a bunch of IDs, and these IDs were separated by commas. Okay, so let's just kind of put some of these in here like this, and then let's just say I had an extra comma at the end. Well, that might throw something off. And so what I could do is I want to get rid of the last comma on this. So I'll say get rid of, or a better way to say it is remove last comma by using trim method, the trim function. So the way you do that is, if I want to take it off the right, I would say rtrim, and then I would pass that CSV string in, but then I can give it a second optional parameter, and instead of trimming just white space, which is the default, I could tell it to trim a comma off there. So in these quotes I put a comma. So if I echo this, let's echo right trim, and then I'll go ahead and echo a break tag on there. You'll see that this comma right there has been removed. So you see now that comma doesn't exist. Okay, so that's some trim functions. You'll do that quite often. A few more string functions that I use all the time are called implode and explode. So let's say I wanted to take this comma separated list and I wanted to make that into an array. Well, they give us an awesome function called explode. So I'm going to say CSV array is equal to explode, and then they let you choose a delimiter. So in this case, a CSV is comma separated, so we're going to choose a comma for that. So inside of these parentheses, we're just going to use a comma. And then for the second parameter here, we're going to pass that CSV right into that. Okay, and we're also actually, you know what? Let's do trimmed CSV. Okay, and let's create that variable. So trimmed CSV is going to equal right trim, and we just did this on a line above it, so we could have used that, but we'll just do this. So trimmed CSV. So now if I go ahead and do a var dump of CSV array, we can see that it's no longer a string, that now it's an array with 6 elements. Okay, so each one of these elements each one of these parts of the string is now a value in an array. So what we could do is, say this was a list of IDs, we could like loop through those. So we could say for each, we'll say for each CSV array as let's just say ID. Then what we can do is we could echo ID, and it'll do a break tag. So we'll just print those to the screen, and you'll see that now we're looping through those, and we had a comma separated list, but now we're looping through those like this. Okay, and let me just, at the end of this break tag here, or this var dump, I'm just going to echo break tag. There we go. So this is, you probably wouldn't echo that out, but you would do some sort of manipulation or insert into a database or something like that, or you're looking up the values. So that's explode. Explode takes a string and then lets you choose a delimiter. In this case, we chose a comma, but this could have very well been like a space. So we could split a string that has words like the quick brown fox and turn each one of these words into an element in an array if we want to do that. So you can split by not just commas, but really anything. Okay, the opposite of explode is implode. So let me show you what that is. So now we have this, well, let's just create a new array, and I'm going to call this array, let's just put a bunch of colors in here. So we'll say color, red, green, blue, purple. Okay, and let's say that for some reason we wanted to put this into a single string. Well, the way that we could do that is with the implode. So we could say echo implode, and the implode is you choose your glue, and we're gonna stick these together. Let's just say just so we don't use a comma since we already did that one, let's just use a colon. Okay, so that will be what we glue it together with, and then we pass in the array as the second element, and then I'm actually going to also do a break tag just to make sure that we're jumping down a line. So let's refresh that, and now you can see that we had this array that had 4 separate elements in it, and using the implode we've turned that into a single string that we could echo, and we put those together with a colon. We could have chosen a space as well, so if we would like to represent that with a space and just have separate words there, we could do that as well. Alright, let me just check my list here, see if there's any I'm missing to go over. I mean, there's quite a few string functions that you can see here inside of PHP manual, and we're going to put this link in your page so that you can reference this later. But I'm just trying to go through some of the ones that I use on a very, very regular basis. You use HTML entities a lot when if you have like HTML from like a WYSIWYG or something that you're trying to put in a database. But I don't want to go over that right now. I don't want to get you guys. Oh, I'll show you one more, and that's string or number format. So let me show you number format real quick, and then we'll wrap up this string function video. So number format is, let's say that we wanted to represent money, and we had something that wasn't, let's just say price, and we'll say equals 45 divided by 12. Okay. Well, if I would, let's say this was going to be a price, and I want to say echo, and then I put a $sign, and then I wanted to concatenate on price, and then I wanted to just concatenate on a break tag here. Let's see. Let me refresh. Well, that worked out too good. Let me try a different one. Let's divide it by 13. Okay, so now this doesn't really look correct because this, we would only expect to see 2 decimal places here, okay, if we were talking about money here in the US. So the rest of this is unnecessary to display. So that's where number format can come in. So what you could say instead is you can do echo, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll just say a $sign. And then instead of echoing just price here, then what we can do is say number format, and then what we'll pass in is the number. So I'm going to pass in price, and then the next parameter is how many decimal places you want. So we'll just say 2. And then we'll also go ahead and throw a break tag on the end of that. So we'll refresh. And now you can see that it echoes a number that makes more sense for being money, $3.46. Okay, so that's what number format does. It also allows, like, say you live somewhere where, or whatever, you don't want to use a period for your decimal point, then you could change that. So let's say you use commas in your country. Well, the next parameter is it'll let you actually choose what that separator will be. So if what did I do wrong here? Number format price to Okay, so if you're choosing to use one that conflicts, so if I used the comma, and the next parameter on this is actually the thousandths marker. So in the United States we use a period for the decimal place, and then we use a comma for the thousandths. So let's say this number was not price anymore. Let's say this was 4,573.4581. Okay, That's our number. Well, if I refresh that, then it puts a comma there because I told it to, and then it uses a decimal place here and then formats it to only 2 decimal places. But I could change that. I could actually do a comma for the decimal place, and I can do a star for the thousandths place. I don't know why you do that, but I just want to show you. So now there's a star where the thousandths place is, and then a comma where that is. So it lets you completely customize that. But that's what these parameters are for, and these parameters are completely optional. That's only if you want to change them from the default. The default will be a comma for the thousandths place and a period used for the decimal place. Well, anyways, that's some string functions that I think you'll use all the time. There are many more, and you'll use more than just these, but just want to make you aware that PHP has some available for you, so you don't have to try to do everything yourself, and get used to looking at the PHP manual to see if that stuff exists. So let's go ahead and throw this into our website so that we can remember this. So inside Pages, I'm just going to go to Template, and I'm going to duplicate that, and we'll call it string functions.php, and at the top let's change that to string functions, and we'll say built-in PHP functions to manipulate strings. Okay, and then the php.net, if you just search PHP string functions, I'm going to grab that URL there and plug it in here. Okay, and then this is string functions, and then we'll echo these out. String functions, string functions. You guys can put some notes here, and then this video's embed code right here with this iframe. Save it, and the last thing we need to do is throw it in the menu. So I'm going to copy this last element or list item here, and we will replace all of these with string functions. String functions. String functions. Alright, so that's our menu item. So let's go now and look at the website. So we'll just go back to the home page here. Now we have a new menu item called string functions, and we can see the code that we had talked about, the results of that, and then we can go to the PHP manual, and then you guys, hopefully you'll put some notes here so that you remember some of what we talked about, and also some thoughts that you had while looking at these functions, things that you might use this for. So hopefully you guys are starting to get some ideas of things that you can do with the programming language. Alright, with that, I think in the next video we're going to start talking about a programming concept called object-oriented programming, or OOP. A lot of people get a little freaked out by it and they get overwhelmed, but I'm going to try to break it down in the simplest way that I possibly can, and you can see how powerful it can be, and maybe some of its downfalls as well. But you will definitely run into object-oriented programming along your coding career, so let's not avoid it. One reason that I wanted to add it into the 101 course is I think a lot of beginner courses skip it because they think it's too advanced. And I think that's a mistake, because you start getting the stigma about object-oriented programming that it's hard, and that it's not basic anymore, and that you have to be some sort of whiz coder or programmer to understand it, and that's just not true. So I think I can teach it in a way that you will understand. So in the next video we're going to start object-oriented programming, and I'm excited about it, and I'll see you there.